I'm Mark Seifter.
And I'm Linda Zeiss Palmer.
And this is Arcane Mark. Hi, everybody.
Hi, and welcome to episode 10 of Skull and Shackles, Linda's Adventures.
Linda's Adventures!
So, we at this point are pretty well stuck into book 5 of Skull and Shackles.
We're about to assault Harrigan's base. Last time we ended with a cliffhanger about how we went in from underground and those Norgor who were down there did something that really messed up Hector and actually otherwise made it a lot easier for us to attack them.
But before we talk about what happened in the Norgor base, let's just really
quickly
go
go
over
through the characters.
Who is we?
That's right. Joe says that you always sound so upbeat, Linda. That's because you succeed at your bluff check.
You know, I'm happy to be with folks. That's all.
Alright, so we've got 5 characters. Do you want to do your...
Yeah. So I am the GM, and I am also Tethys Kybali, Tiefling Storyteller and Harrowed Medium, who has a tendency to tell tall tales and exaggerate things and come up with a different bizarre combo to pretty much every combat.
The only harrowed medium in the world.
I'm also playing Aram Wetfoot, who is the halfling hydrokineticist / aerokineticist now. The storm, I think of him as a storm halfling, and a mobile artillery turret for the party. He generally prefers to stay in the background in social situations and come to the forefront when it comes time to do anything that having the ability to raise or lower water and create giant storms of lightning or whatever else he is up to. So, how about your PCs? And
all right, the remaining PCs are Mirani Rin, Captain Rin Ilium, who is a swashbuckler of Besmara, who is very devoted to Besmara, more so than the cleric of Besmara, who's an NPC in the party, and is really sure that Besmara is basically sending all these treasures and challenges to us, and that we need to charge headlong into them and amuse Besmara. Else Besmara is going to get bored and just make us lose once we are no longer interesting to her. Extremely reckless, along with her companion, Farusa, the Coral Capuchin, her familiar. There's also Hector, her brother, Hector Ilium. He is a shaman of waves. He is more level-headed. He doesn't know that his wave spirit is also Besmara and is not really thrilled about how much Rin goes in with Besmara. And his companion Pontus, the dragon, the Tidepool dragon, emissary of the sea, who is known for his very large ego and sense of his own importance, and for feuding with Farusa, the Coral Capuchin. And then finally, Antiope, or Mr. Tai. She is the master gunner, a brawler who just likes to fight and still isn't sure whether her alignment is neutral, chaotic neutral, neutral evil, or chaotic evil. But I think we have her at neutral, maybe. I can't remember anymore.
Yeah, I think we did. We've moved it around a little bit during the adventure based on like what's been going on more specifically at the time.
She's kind of like not very empathetic, but she's loyal to her friends, and she likes to fight. So those are the 5 characters.
Yes.
Yes, to go with what Joe was saying there.
Mark, surprisingly enough, was not the one who started it.
Yeah, I wasn't the one who started it.
Yeah, but you sure were gonna pick up on and run in with that now, weren't you? This time.
That's right. So, those 5 characters had already found like the former Harrigan's crew, and we also, in earlier episodes, we saved via illusions that made it look like they got blown up by another evil pirate who was against us to get Harrigan after that guy. A whole bunch of named NPCs from the Wormwood who had just already joined us. And if we hadn't, apparently, like, Cutthroat Grok would have had, like, her arms cut off and stuff and just, like, been on a table in here.
It would have been bad.
And all sorts of bad things would have happened to a lot of the ones who had not come with us. But we actually had almost all of them at this point. Like, one of the few remaining people who was not just part of Harrigan's, like, elite murder crew was the Stitch Man, who was the ship's surgeon, and Harrigan still didn't do quite as bad things to him because he was needed for repairing ships.
Yes.
But he was not in great shape. But we had somehow avoided some of those really bad, nasty gut punches in the dungeon, and we were coming in from the very bottom floor, home to an evil Norgorber cult and like some kind of giant animal or something.
Well, you had to fight,
or something.
was that where you fought your way through the deep tiger anemone in the sea caves?
Yes, there was a giant anemone.
Yes.
And an enemy of an enemy is a friend, as everyone knows.
Yes.
And so
you guys were able to make your way through into the Norgorber place, and at the end of last time you mentioned that that some of the precautions they'd taken made things actually easier for your PCs overall for your infiltration plan.
That's right.
Because the Norgorberites had an unhollow that was tied to a silence that was up throughout the area.
So that only Norgorberites could make sound.
Yes.
This, because of our psychic spellcasters, the only person who got really, really screwed over by that was Hector, who was also the party's main spellcaster and could not cast spells. But the rest of the party didn't care. In fact, it made us quieter to sneak up on them. They couldn't hear us. They could only hear what the Norgorber were saying.
Wouldn't the encounters combine because people would call out for help? But, like, the last people that are going to call out for help and admit that they are in a moment of weakness or what have you are followers of Norgorber who are part of the more followers of Norgorber who particularly value secrecy. So the Norgorbites were getting attacked by the PCs. The PCs can't make any sound. The Norgorbites are trying to die quietly, I guess. I mean, they were trying to win, but even when they didn't win
or die quietly. Those are your only two choices.
Yeah, clearly. So the PCs, Mark's just taking care of a little bit of moderation right there.
That's true, but Stump Monkey is sad that we moderated out this band because now he'll never be famous.
There are more trustworthy ways to become famous.
You don't trust F. Durant? Fair enough. Okay. So, these Norgorberites, as it turns out, these Chilaxian Norgorberites, I think, were just sort of down there, and they were absolutely using silence, and they kept very quiet. They tried to. They
did have a Eurypterid that was with them as well.
I thought there was some kind of a Eurypterid.
Yeah, in addition to the cultists themselves, who were led by a powerful cleric of Norgorber.
There you go. So,
the Mistress of Revelations.
Yes, and they tried to like taunt us somewhat, but we couldn't really respond to them because of the silence.
Mm-hmm. Evil villainous speeches don't really work quite as well when you're taunting someone and they can't respond because of the silence.
But we defeated them pretty easily thanks to their
really
silence on Hallow. And we found that, troublingly enough, that they did have they were in contact with Cheliax. In fact, they had like a magical way to communicate with Admiral Druvalia Thrune of the Chalice Navy.
Yeah, their leader, Lucaria, had a scrying font that allowed for two-way communication with Druvalia Thrune.
I think it was outside the area of the Unhallowed so that Druvalia could communicate, because she was not a follower of Norgorber. This was a very interesting fact and situation due to the fact that as it turns out, Hector and Ren, as we mentioned sometimes before, in some of the episodes, are the children of a made-up challenge admiral named Andromeda Ilium, who was killed possibly due to treachery that caused her ship to land on a really dangerous island or crash during a storm, and then everybody died except Hector and Rin. However, before that point, they were, like, you know, the naval brats who were moving around with their mother, who was an admiral, and meeting other, like, admirals' children, which included Druvalia Thrune, who, as a branch cadet member of House Thrune, who was in the Naval Academy, there were attempts to sort of set up Hector with her, and Hector was just terrified of her because she was a sociopath and just horrible, and he did not want those attempts to succeed.
But she's a Thrune, so what are you gonna do?
Well, I mean,
if you're presumed dead and lost on an island, then
it was unclear if that was gonna work out or not. Anyway,
it was at the very least in the water.
It was something that had been floated and that they had met sometime. They did not get along well because he thought that she was a sociopath and she thought that he was not enough of a sociopath.
Yep. Or as they might like to call it, spineless and weak.
Yes, and weak.
Yes.
But also she was mad because of the fact that it was clear that, like, he was, like, terrified of her, was not into her. Mm-hmm. Even though she didn't necessarily like him that much either. It's like she's a Thrune, so she doesn't expect to be rejected in any way.
Yep.
Especially since her house is so powerful that any connection to it is something that people who like to lick boots would always want to court, no matter what.
Yes.
So, anyway, she suddenly appears in the scrying font, and it's a two-way situation where you can see who's on the other side, and she sees that, like, Hector Ilium is there, or who's a man who's obviously Hector, because he was the one fiddling, trying to see what's going on there.
Hector had been a teenager at the time, but, like, and Rin had been a bit younger, but, like, they still clearly, definitely, immediately recognized each other.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It was very obvious. And then she, like, said some kind of statement that she made that, I don't know, did you have that, like, written down and
I might
set up in a file?
I might still have that
because
somewhere.
it was very... Linda actually has a pretty reasonable take on Druvalia that's gone back for longer than you would expect due to a weird situation. Mm-hmm. At a PaizoCon, one of the early ones Linda and I went to, we lotteried into a game that Jason Nelson ran. It was a naval combat plus combat at the end where Linda and I were playing Druvalia and Val, her loyal Hell Knight bodyguard, against the entire... It was a PvP against the entire rest of everyone who signed up for the event, who were playing a bunch of pirates, and they had Wish and, like, Swarms of Elementals and a lot of ridiculous stuff, and outnumbered us, like, 5-2, something like that. And we defeated all of them in the naval combat, and then we defeated all of them in the other combat that came after the naval combat. But we had sort of, like, knew about those characters in advance because of this sort of random naval combat game that included those characters.
It looks like I saved these as, it looks like I did these with OpenOffice, and they're not a file type that is going to play nicely with anything I have in this computer right now.
Google will probably open it.
I might be able to get it to open it, but
if you don't know which one by the name has it,
I'm also not sure which one is it.
Then
but,
no worries.
But I do.
You may have the stats for super souped up Harrigan in there too.
I do have the stats for super souped up Harrigan somewhere. Yeah, here it is. It's Harrigan's Hero Lab file. I did him in Hero Lab.
It was in Hero Lab. Okay.
But yeah, no, she definitely recognized that it was definitely one of those you moments, because it became clear to both her and the PCs during that conversation that she was the one who was behind that growing threat from the Chelish Navy on the Shackles. And it became clear to her that the PCs were the ones who were sort of these up-and-coming pirate lords. Because she'd kind of heard about, like, you know, Hector and Rin and whatever, but it's one thing to kind of hear, oh yeah, you know, there's kinds of these familiar names. I've heard of people with these names before. And it's another thing to be like, no, that's definitely you. You're the one. You are my enemy.
Yep.
So she definitely gives, you know, this pompous speech that's basically like, surrender to Chiliax now, and there will be some mercy. Otherwise, I will crush everything you've ever held dear.
And they were like, Rim was like, nah.
And Hector's basically like, panicking this entire time, not really sure what to do or say.
He's in panic mode.
Yeah.
Ren's like, nah, bye, Drew.
It's like, don't just call her Drew. No! Just making everything worse.
Yep.
Hector.
Oh, Hector. He's so loyal to his sister.
Yep.
That if this was fate, that would definitely be his trouble. Is Ren. So they dealt with that strange.
And she also revealed that. And she also revealed at that point that Harrigan was in her pocket, and that.
Which was, kind of probably clear by the fact that there was a scrying thing to her in the basement of his fortress, but you never know with Norgorbrites. They do keep a lot of secrets. They might have been keeping secrets from him, but yeah, we had heard rumors to that extent before, and that he may have been doing these Dagon demon things to trying to rid himself of the child's influence, but didn't seem like that had necessarily worked.
I also like how she disappears. In this, she blew a kiss at Hector, and then the scrying font exploded.
Yes, it dealt damage.
Yep.
Yeah.
She's dangerous.
Yep.
You're still gonna have to deal with her.
We haven't dealt with her yet.
It's gonna be one of the next things that we
haven't dealt with her yet, and that's really our next thing when we play Skull and Shackles again. So, yeah, we dealt with that bottom floor, and that was fine. We knew at this point that also we needed to go pretty fast, because if she even cared about Harrigan at this point, within 10 minutes she could, send a sending or something and be like, yo, dog, there's people in your basement coming to kill you. So, that put at least an amount of timer on it. And honestly, if she had devils come to visit him at any point, that they could, greater teleport and have been there immediately. So, we didn't know what was going to happen.
Fortunately for you, she had started to catch wind of the fact that he may not have been as useful of a pawn recently. So she wasn't necessarily willing. So
she at least implied that she didn't care if we defeated him.
Yeah.
When Rin was like, "We're gonna crush your friend," and she's like, "That's good. Get rid of a loose end for me." He was a cat's paw who gave me information about the pirates, and his usefulness is coming to an end. I'm glad that you will do my work for me.
Yeah.
But we weren't sure if she was telling the truth. To make it seem like we would all just fallen exactly into her plan.
I mean, things are gonna exactly as planned.
Exactly as planned.
The extent to which she was fully aware of what he was up to, and versus he'd just been a little bit more disappointing lately is as yet unclear to the PCs.
We don't really know. So anyway, we got up onto the main level, and we had to avoid some troll patrols.
Yeah, there's a bunch of scrag patrols.
Sometimes call them patrols, I guess. Or scrags because they're watery trolls. We had to fight at least one of them.
Yeah,
and we were able.
I did add more of the patrols around the area too, so it was more of an idea of yes, you could fight this giant combat, or you can do some sneaking past and doing things like that. And there were also a bunch of human smugglers that were there as well.
We were able to save the Stitch Man, and eventually we realized that Harrigan and everyone that mattered was in this upper area that we decided to assault. When we did, we discovered that he had sort of gone to ground with a bunch of really powerful people, some of which we had never faced before. So we were able to get... there were a few others that had actually not been jailed up that also had not left yet. Like Riaris Crine, the evil line master gunner who liked Ty, though. Ty was the only person Riaris Crine liked from the time on the Wormwood, because everyone else was just being incompetent, and Ty would just beat the crap out of them and would marshal flexibility to whatever feat was necessary for the situation.
Also, we
got Crine to stand down.
Also, Crine didn't think that the other PCs were serious enough for her taste. The halfling was just kind of simpering, and and Rin and Tethys were just both braggarts who were constantly boasting about their abilities, and Hector was also just kind of shrinking away and was bad at combat.
That's right. But we got Crine to stand down, but we still wound up having to face off against some Tengu who really didn't like humans a lot. And a lot of us were humans. I'm not even sure why the Tengu disliked humans that much. But
sometimes when you want to have favorite enemy,
he really didn't like them.
yep.
And then there was this lady who we had never heard about before in the campaign, although with knowledge checks we had heard about her because she was apparently famous, who was, but like we had no clue that this apparently famous person was just there with Harrigan until we ran across her, who was like a very Magus-y kind of like weapon and...
Yeah, Adalita.
I think she may have been a wizard mostly, but she was very Magus-y or Eldritch Knight-ish with like her like fighting and like blasting with spells.
Her hook hand and things like
she
that.
Had a very enchanted
like,
hook hand.
The backstory is like an entire solid page of all of the trauma that she went through, and then like...
She had this giant backstory, was very famous, but like there was no foreshadowing that this famous person was even going to be here until we just found her in a side room when we were trying to get to Harrigan.
Yeah.
And so what wound up happening was the entire rest of the party engaged that entire floor, while Rin kind of just sidled ahead into a duel with Harrigan one-on-one. While the rest of the party was trying to stop the floor from adding to the fight, or like meeting each other, or escaping with magic.
I mean, Harrigan was fine with the idea of dueling Rin, because Harrigan assumed that he could crush Rin, and then cut off her head, and then use that as a trophy to intimidate the rest of the people who were following her.
It was legitimately hard. It was one of Rin's closest fights. Her closest fights were Plug. That one, she almost had trouble with one-on-one. She almost lost because he was like level 6 with like 4 attacks per round, and she was like level 2 or or something like that. Then there was like some random Rico Laka where they did not duel, and there were a lot of them attacking her, and they got a ton of natural 20s in a row. Those actually knocked her unconscious.
Yeah.
And then Harrigan, which the Rico Lakas was not a duel, whereas Plug and Harrigan were actually duels.
They were both duels with, like...
And they were hard.
Duel, like, CR plus 4...
Yeah, because she was level 12, and Harrigan was a level 16 PC belt with PC level wealth, Blood Rager, Abyssal Blood Rager with the maxed out strength boosts and everything like that. And honestly, I think that Rin just overall got lucky to win. Like, she would have, on average, probably lost.
In the construction of the fight, I didn't think you were necessarily going to win on your own, but I knew that the other PCs were nearby enough, including Hector, who had Breath of Life, that if you died, then there would be coming back.
They would have been able to get there. In fact, they were able to deal with the rest of the floor before Rin won her duel, which is actually part of what was terrifying, is that he got to survive and do that many attacks.
Yes.
Because she couldn't drop him fast enough. She couldn't parry reliably against some of his attacks, and she was running lowish on panache. And she did get lucky overall, but she didn't get super lucky on a lot of crits to keep up her panache. It was kind of that I got not quite good luck on my stuff, but that Linda just didn't get good enough luck on her stuff to kill me, and she easily could have. And so, it was intense because of Linda's rebuilt Harrigan was ridiculously powerful. Fortunately, the Swashbuckler's ability to parry and riposte is ridiculously unfair. And so, I had no business fighting against a character that was that optimized, even with my character, who was also optimized, except for the ability that I had been given was nearly a hard counter against melee attacks. But this was the one situation where it wasn't entirely a hard counter. I still blocked almost everything he threw at me, but the hits that did happen did a huge percentage of my health. In the end, he had critical focus, and they usually were a crit in order to get past my parry, or a critical threat.
Yeah.
So, so he would get a +4
and he had
to confirm.
Furious focus, of course, so that first hit
of course. The first was the one that would often hit, and he got a +4 to confirm the critical. So if he did hit, right, because he needed to parry me, and he'd often need like an 18 on the attack roll or whatever, but then he would only need a 14 to confirm the critical, so it was much more likely to crit. I still managed to take him down. And defeat him in a one-on-one Rin versus Harrigan situation. And meanwhile, the rest of the party had had defeated the rest of the floor.
Yeah, and the rest of the floor had all sorts of, like, there was this long-tongued witch who was just,
I remember the witch now with the unusually long tongue.
Gilbert the Tongue or whatever.
Yes,
something the tongue was his
I
name.
forgot about that. I remember now. He was doing some spells that were definitely a problem for a little bit. It was just this whole fight, but it was kind of eclipsed by the Rin versus Harrigan duel. Somewhat, even though it was against these, like, a ton of really powerful opponents. This guy's asking, is it Crane Wing versus Swashbuckler and Skull and Shackles? It is Swashbuckler versus rebuilt Abyssal Blood Rager, who was 4 levels higher and built with PC, optimized with PC level stats and wealth.
And you didn't need any of the rest of the PCs to help you.
1-on-1, level 12 versus level 16. It was close. But we did take down that base. And when we did, that sort of drew it close to the arc with Harrigan. But we weren't done yet, because he had built that base near this creepy Kolipoth Dagon tower, and we needed to find out what was in there, what he had called forth, if there was going to be another threat to the area from those creepy Kolipoths. And let me tell you something. Rin, single class Swashbuckler, is the rock, paper, scissors character in Pathfinder 1st Edition. She has an ability that is completely unfair and automatically wins, more or less, against melee attacks. And that's what Harrigan had. But this Kolipoth tower revealed the other side, which is that her fortitude and will saves are terrible.
Welcome to fortitude and will save
She can use an immediate action to add a charisma modifier to one of them per round, and that'll be good. The rest... And this was the fortitude and will save tower. It just so happened, even though our party didn't know exactly how many fortitudes and will saves were going to happen, but the Tethys had, like, leveled up off of Harrigan and had this new weird combo she was doing with some of the Harrowed Medium spirits involving the juggler that she'd never done before. She's like, I'm going to try this weird thing. I don't know if it's going to work or not, but it's going to let me, like, juggle the saving throws of my other party members. And they're like, oh, yeah, I guess that could help.
That's one of the things that I did when playing Tethys is taking a lot of different combos and trying out different ones, and also having Market involved in picking out those combos, and that way there wouldn't really be sort of that metagaming of, oh, she just happened to pick the best thing for here, right? I'd be like, oh, let's try something new I hadn't tried yet. But in this case, it was super useful.
It turned out to be very important because of the fact that Rin would have been at the least taken out of the fight multiple times for like the entire fight, if not killed or like driven insane or something, in fights where it really mattered that she wasn't taken out, because Tethys had a weird medium combo, and that was the only reason. Because this was full of hard fortitude and will saves.
Yeah, there were all sorts of traps and curses.
Oh, we dealt with those. Those were okay, because we could deal with the traps, but what we couldn't deal with was just all the Kolipoths had fortitude.
Yeah, and then
they were like, here's my appearance,
like,
look how horrifying it is, and now I'm going to do this other thing.
And then eventually you make it past that, it's like,
there was like a puzzle involving Dagon statues, and we found like a minor artifact of, I think, like Norgorber, that was a short sword that had like imprisoned an ancient Kolipoth for a while, and then like, after we made it through there, we solved the puzzles, and we got the short sword, we had to face the something, it was like the queen.
The Shrouded Queen.
Yes, and that Queen Kolipoth had fortitude and will saves that were so high that it literally required Tethys's ability completely to
the room is also
up.
Like forbidden as well, and there was all sorts of other shenanigans going on. This was normally an Agnigar Kolipoth, but I ended up doing a pretty buffed Agnigar Kolipoth by stats, so it was just like, oh, hi.
But thanks to Tethys's medium abilities,
say hello to Harrigan's friends? Question mark.
We were able to keep Rin going, and our good friend Aram Wetfoot managed to use his kinetic blast to good measure against their damage reduction that you need lawful to get through, which was a problem for everybody else in the party because we were not a very lawful group.
That is true.
Let's put it that way. Even if we had decided let's carry axiomatic weapon, we were not very lawful. But fortunately, Kinetic Blast is like, oh, okay, yeah, I see that DR. Well, I have Fur 90 or whatever. So,
Yeah.
yeah, DR 10. Yeah, that's fine. I have Fur 90.
Whatever. Yep.
It's 1/9 of it. It's annoying, but. So, we were able to do that. And I think that Ty wound up taking, like, pummeling style, so she could do a giant pummel thing that would also only allow the DR to apply once or something like that.
Yeah, I think that she did do that there. I mean, she took a lot of feats depending on what was needed.
Oh, yeah. She absolutely did. And so she wasn't using her Boarding Pyko OP as much because she needed to do some pummeling.
You actually didn't use the +1 weapon.
Gasp. She had to do some pummeling. So it was definitely a lot of characters using very, very specific tactics and strategies to be able to handle all the weird Quillipoth-ness that was in there. Even some of the regular encounters with just a few Quillipoths that were not that hard would have taken Rin out, and possibly more people too. But Tethys that was an MVP with her weird Harrowed Medium stuff. Like, usually, whenever her weird Harrowed Medium stuff is like, okay, that's weird. Mm-hmm. It's helping. It's definitely carrying her weight in the party. But she usually wouldn't be the MVP because it would be Hector for being the one who had, like, every utility spell known to existence and was the only spellcaster. But in that tower, it was definitely Tethys.
Yep.
Because there's just no way on the saving throws.
So wait, now was it in Harrigan's treasury that you found the
yes.
other half of Ty's amulet?
We found the other half of Ty's amulet had just happened to be in Harrigan's treasure. The one that Ty had gotten that supposedly, like, her father had left behind because her mother was a prostitute and who had eventually decided that Ty cost too much money and just sent Ty off to do her own thing. Mm-hmm. But Ty did have one thing she had, like, grabbed that supposedly was from her father before she went. She swiped it from her mom, who she does not like. Mm-hmm. And it was half of some kind of a weird necklace that wasn't necessarily originally from her dad. In fact, it didn't seem like it necessarily was, but she didn't really know, and her mother didn't know who her dad was anyway. So we were able to figure out that her father was not Harrigan, but Harrigan just had the other half of it in his treasury. And it was when it was combined, we were able to figure out that there was, like, a message in there from some pirate to his son, who was also not meant for Ty, like, I don't know what my gender my child will be, but also here it's for, but actually was for some other son that was in the past.
The pirate, it seemed to be talking to two different sons. That the pirate had two sons, and neither of them had sufficiently impressed him, and so he split those two up and gave them to the two of them, and is like, whichever of you is strong enough to defeat the other and combine these can have the treasure, but you guys are... And try to pit them against each other in that way.
And so we did combine it, and it led us to a map which found, like, an ancient Aslanti site on an island that people didn't know about, that had all sorts of weird Aeon Stone-based, like, puzzles and traps. Fortunately, once again, we had Tethys the Medium, who was able to use her location medium ability to call upon the spirits of the place. Then Hector was able to temporarily learn Ancient Aslanti, using his magic to try to communicate with the spirits, and found out a little bit more of what the place was supposed to be. There were also some people, I think, who may have been living nearby there in the modern era who just didn't really know what it was for. They didn't have the amulet, which was the key to one of the Aeon Stone type mechanisms. So we figured out some of those puzzles, and we found that there were also some treasure, and there was a construct at the end that was, like, in this special room that looked like it was going to possibly mess us up if we came in there and, like, didn't do a puzzle correctly or something.
So this was based off of the Legendary Games Adventures, Isles of Plunder, Scourge of the Steaming Sea. Had initially had Captain Scraggs on an island, and then this was kind of like a small side thing that was on that island. But the PCs had defeated Captain Scraggs by sending Harrigan after him in the past.
As you'll recall at the beginning of the episode, when I said we convinced Harrigan that some other guy from another adventure had using an illusion, had blown up a bunch of his people.
But this adventure had cool Ion Stone stuff that fit really well with the first of the Legendary Games adventures that we did, or maybe it was the second one, Terran's Crown.
The one that gave us the Pearl Mesmara, which
Yeah.
Rin still has, that lets you slot Aeon Stones into it to get weird
So
effects.
yeah, I still wanted to keep that sort of Aeon/Ion Stone stuff going on. We were calling them Ion Stones at the time because it was first edition, but yeah. I wanted to keep that stuff going on. I wanted to keep that connection. So I decided, well, this could be the answer to the mystery of what is the treasure at the end of the rainbow, so to speak, for Ty's thing. So Ty's still not really sure, like, who her father was. Like, was her father one of these? Was her father like one of these people?
Was he
her
descended
grandfather-
from one of these people? One of the two sons, or was it just something he came across from?
Yeah.
One of those sons, unclear.
But what is clear is that because Ty had that thing, the party got some more treasure.
Well, we didn't talk about it, so like we were supposed to have to fight the construct while we were. I think there was like a puzzle, or we were gonna mess it up. But we figured out like some of its parameters, and just managed to avoid having to trigger its ability to attack us.
Yeah.
By virtue of figuring out like how far it would go and when it would reset. And what we could do without setting it off, we managed to only do things that didn't set it off, and still get everything that we wanted to.
Because you were worried too that if it was rampaging around, it might break the strange device in the room.
Yeah, we didn't want it to break the strange device in the room.
And you were able to get several Aeon Stones out of that strange device.
Yep. I think you had mentioned before that in the adventure it assumes that that like a fight goes off and that some more stuff gets smashed, so that you like added more things because we found a way to actually avoid allowing it to attack.
Yeah, so
something like that.
So I think you managed to fill up all like 8 or however many slots are in the or in Besmara's Pearl.
Oh yeah, that's where we discovered that there was a limit, and that Besmara's Pearl spits out the extra Aeon Stones when it has too many.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is definitely true that like. When we found this artifact, which was in the Legendary Games adventure, which Farusa stole from the guy who had it, you can see it in one of the previous episodes. Once Rin had it and discovered that it slurps up Aeon Stones and then gives you an extra weird ability depending on which ones it has, that is sometimes different than the resonant ability from Wayfinders, she decided that meant that Mesmara wanted her to collect every kind of Aeon Stone. So even later, like sometimes when the Aeon Stone was like not at all useful for her or even like something that people would care about, she'd be like, you should go after that Aeon Stone because Mesmara likes them because her pearl.
So she thought that she had a mission to collect all types of Aeon Stones.
But eventually it started spitting them out because she realized that it could only hold a certain number of them.
Yeah.
But first
and
she did think that.
That was the end of Rin's
I actually think
must
she may have
every...
figured that out before we got to this place.
Yeah.
But yes, she ended that, but she still thought that obviously it was important to have them because Besmara's Pearl liked them.
Besmara's Pearl liked giving you extra powers and liked to tell you whether or not attacking something was a good idea.
Everyone likes extra powers.
Yeah, everyone likes extra powers.
But attacking something seems to often be a good idea, so...
Yeah. But you cleared out these Kulaboths, and you found that other dungeon that brought you to that. There were a few other... At this point, I also threw in a few other tricky ship encounters because I was trying to pull through some of those last encounters that we hadn't done yet. And it was coming up to the time to start rallying folks more to prepare for the imminent Chelish invasion.
And we started doing that, and we convinced the pirate lords, and we brought in the evidence from Harrigan, and we brought in the evidence that Drew was down there in Harrigan's basement, being like, "Ha I will come with my fleets and destroy you."
Mm-hmm.
And so that eventually convinced more people that they needed to do something about it. Although the Hurricane King was like surprisingly not convinced enough, and that was part of that was why Rin eventually decided that maybe the Hurricane King was in like Thrune's pocket somehow, and that maybe she has to do something about the Hurricane King, because if he's not even going to defend the Shackles at this point, that is really messed up.
Yeah. And this was also the point where some of the pirates started started making whispers to Rin that, like, hypothetically, were the Hurricane King to have some kind of fate befall him where he was no longer able to be in charge, that they would back her.
Yes. And also, Rin started thinking about the fact that Besmara herself sometimes, does things for multiple reasons, and she may not just be abused by the party. It may be the case that she had been propelling Rin to this position specifically because she was annoyed that if the Hurricane King was working with Cheliax, because she likes pirates and not Cheliax, and she wanted Rin to be in this position specifically to do some skullduggery if necessary. But it depended to her on how much the Hurricane King was actually going to interfere, and we hadn't really gone super much into getting prepped. I know that our fleet size, Linda was saying, is like, you're supposed to start building your fleet, but we already had a huge number of ships in our fleet because we kept every ship that we took. And we also paid really well because we kept getting like an unreasonably high amount of plunder and rewards, because every time we sailed somewhere we would like encounter some ridiculous wealth, ridiculous thing that gave enough wealth for a party of our level. And turns out that if the amount of money that things are worth in Pathfinder First Edition scales pretty high.
Also,
it scales faster than the number of ships we were getting, and we gave a percentage of all of our take to our people.
And because you were doing that, and because I was on slow XP and I was throwing hard stuff at you, you guys got a lot of money, which you then used to outfit better ships. And I don't know,
mostly
maybe
just
it's just
gave
a
it as
thing
money
with me
to
as a
them.
GM. Yeah, but that happened in Kingmaker too, where I just like giving the PCs a lot of treasure, and then in the end, sure, I have to adjust the encounters up a little more.
In Kingmaker, we embezzled a huge amount. We wound up with a lot of personal wealth. But in Skull and Shackles, we did just give a lot of it to our people. We give them a ridiculous salary.
Yeah, well, you got a lot of people you got a lot of loyal crewmates.
Now, if we liquidated our entire navy, our personal money would suddenly like skyrocket.
Yes.
And I think we could buy like some mirrors of mental prowess, or whatever the most expensive item is in Pathfinder First Edition.
Yeah, you could buy like anything. You could be like, oh, tomes?
Yeah, whatever.
Plus 5 to a stat? Or something like that.
I'd like to buy the Spire of Nex.
1 Spire of Nex, please.
And Nex comes out of his thing and is like, I'll sell that to you, as well as these 3 Worldscape comics.
Thanks, Nex.
You're welcome. Now back to Red Sonja.
But yeah, so that's where we're at right now, is I was figuring out sort of what the last little bits of side quest that I wanted to throw at the PCs before we went into that, okay, yeah, now we're going to get more into the end game. Because I kind of got caught in that thing where it's you're at the end of a book or a video game or whatever, and you're like, you know that you're getting into the end, and you're not really sure you want to wrap it up, so.
That's right.
But we could always, but yeah, I think I'm pretty much done with those things. I have one more major encounter that I have mostly statted up for you, and that'll probably be the next thing we do, and then I think we'll roll into the actual confrontation.
The actual confrontation.
I want to chat with you about how you want to handle that, because I know that the adventure path assumes that it's an all-in-out ship combat. But knowing the PCs and how they usually prefer to do things, so that
how we usually prefer to do things is we don't want our ships, which includes their ships, to get hurt. So therefore, what we do is we quite naturally sneak aboard their ships, take out all of their personnel with our PCs, and then now we have another ship.
Yeah, but like, how is that necessarily going to work when it's normally like, oh yeah, you're fighting against 20 or 30 ships?
Well, obviously we have to take out the flagship. And then, one by one, take out all the other ships in the same way. The problem is they could potentially like scuttle. If they don't care and they see that we're on the flagship, they could just like have orders to like kill their own people on the flagship, including their commander, with siege weapons. It's like, you see the PCs on a ship, destroy it. And yes, this might kill me, I don't care, but we'll take them out and then you can destroy the rest of their fleet.
You'll just have to see what their plans are.
Yep. Who knows? Like, there are ways around our strategy of being better than everyone.
PCs in a nutshell.
But if they try a strategy of coming onto our ship, they will find out that there's some serious problems with that strategy.
Yeah, like the ridiculous lurker in your hold,
Yes.
and the fact that
we have a siren in the crow's
you have a
nest.
siren in the crow's nest, and you have a fair number of level 7 and above NPCs who...
Our crew is temporarily immune to the siren, and she's just singing in case something invisibly tries to do something, that it'll get screwed. It'll get caught by her song, and then we will find out that they were sneaking, as they're no longer sneaking, as they're just like...
Yep. You've got a lot of stuff going for you.
We've got some...
Besmara favors the bold.
That's right. And if all worst comes to worst, then Pontus can send for his pen pal Hirganzos, the mighty dragon turtle.
The power of friendship, everybody.
Power of kaiju friendship.
Yeah. Who doesn't want
Just a tiny dragon who is friends with a giant kaiju dragon turtle.
Who doesn't want a ship devouring dragon turtle kaiju on your side when you're a pirate?
I don't know. All right, so I think that's the end of this. Let's say bye to YouTube and then do a little more with this. Bye.